Welcome to the Business Process Automation Platform training videos from Codeless Platforms. Here are the objectives, required tools, and approximate running time for this video. On completion of this training exercise, we will use the Web Service Connector tool to connect to the BigCommerce API, map, transform, and convert the BigCommerce data, and write the order headers and details to the staging database. Please note that this is a tutorial, not a full production example. If you wish to follow this process in your own environment, you will need the staging database, preferably in the same location as BPA Platform, and appropriate drivers installed for your chosen database. We are using Microsoft SQL Server in this example. In addition, mapping and data transform files are required as part of this tutorial. The staging database and all other assets can be found here. You will need a deployment of BigCommerce for testing. If you do not have access to this, you can sign up for a free trial. If required, we have a video that can help with signing up and the creation of your API key. The Web Service Connector tool will need to be configured with the BigCommerce API. Before we begin making the task, we will need to set up a connection for the Call Stored Procedure tool. In System, Tools, Data Connectors, double-click Call Stored Procedure OLEDB and click Add. Select the appropriate driver, in this case Microsoft OLEDB Provider for SQL Server, and click OK. In the Server drop-down, we will select Local, use Trusted Connection, and in the options, select BPA Training DB v3.2 from the list. Then click OK. If successful, you will have the option to name this connection. We will call this B2C Staging v3.2. Click OK, and then click Close. Under System, Tools, Data Connectors, let's open the Web Service Connector tool. Add a new configuration and name it BigCommerce Tutorial. Select I do not have a definition file and click OK. Select the Web Service Route tab. Under Web Service URL, type the following. And the web service type is unknown. OK, let's switch to the web browser and let's go to this URL. At the bottom of the page, under Send a Test Request, click the Headers tab and take note of the headers used. Let's go back to BPA Platform, and on the Request Headers tab, replicate the header names and values we just noted. It should look like this. We want to allow mapping for XAuth token, and we will map these later. Next, go to the Operations tab and add a new operation. This will be a GET operation. Name it Get Orders, and under Operation Type, ensure Get is selected. And click OK. Go to the URL tab and select Use the connection URL. Notice the URL appears at the bottom. Let's look back at the BigCommerce documentation. In the Send Test Request, notice how the URL is made up. Store name, the store we are going to use, v2/orders, the request we are going to use. OK, back in BPA Platform, in the Input parameter, click in the Parameter Name field, and now type store_hash. For now, just give it the parameter name. And drag the store hash parameter to the bottom at the end of the URL. Now type /v2/orders ? Now on the API document web page, look at all the parameters. We won't use most of these. However, we do want a specific status and also to limit the size of the reply. This is accomplished using pages and a limit. For example, 10 orders per page, and then asking for a specific page. Back in BPA Platform, we need to enter these parameters into the Input Parameters field. In the parameter area, now type status_ID. Back in the URL area, at the end, type status_ID equals. Now drag in the status_ID from the input parameters, followed by an ampersand. Then type page equals, and in the parameter area type page. Now drag page from the parameter area, followed by an ampersand. Finally type limit equals, and in the parameter area type limit, and drag limit at the end of the URL. The URL should now look like this. OK, in the Output Data tab, select Output Required. The reply from BigCommerce will be in JSON format, and in order for BPA Platform to convert this to XML, we will need to give it a schema. Go back to the BigCommerce documentation, and in the Responses section, copy the entire contents under the Application JSON response. This is an example of what will come back from the request later on. Back in BPA Platform, in the Output Data tab, paste this into the Schema section. OK, click the Infer Schema from XML or JSON button, and this will convert what you pasted into the schema. Now press Validate Schema to check this was OK. And we can click OK, and OK again, and close this window. Navigate to your Tasks folder and create a new task. Name it BigCommerce Get Orders. And go to the Design tab. Let's now create the variables we need for this task. In the browser environment, with scope set to task, right-click Variables and select New. Let's name it var access token. Then click the Details tab. Ensure type is variant. Select parameter with parameter attributes as in/out. Then click OK. We will now repeat this process to create the following variables. In the Browser Tools tab, under Execute, drag in a Run VB Script step. Name this step Set BigCommerce Variables. Open the Main tab. Now go to the Browser Environment tab, with scope set to task. Drag in each variable we just created in the following order. You now need to populate each of these variables with your store details, API credentials, and the following details. And click OK to close this step. OK, now add a new Web Service Connector tool. In the General tab, name this step Get Orders. We will not use a record set or XML from another step in this instance. OK, go to the Web Service tab. Select the new web service configuration we created, named BigCommerce Tutorial. Under the Operations drop-down, select Get Orders. In the Mapping tab, expand the Web Service folder on the right side of the window so we can see all the parameters. Open up the Functions toolbox on the right and drag in a Fixed Dynamic Data function. Close the Functions tab and in Global Headers folder, drag XAuth token to the fixed dynamic and double-click to open it. Next, open the Value tab, and in the browser, in the Environment tab, set Scope to Task. Drag in the var access token into the output text area. This has mapped the variable containing the XAuth token. On the Transform function pane, click OK to close. In Functions, drag in 4 more fixed dynamic data functions for each of the headers and each of the remaining parameters. Drag StoreHash to the fixed dynamic. Double-click to open it, and click the Value tab. In the browser, drag var StoreHash to the output text area. Click OK to close the function. Drag Status ID to the fixed dynamic. Double-click to open it, and click the Value tab. In the browser, drag var Status ID into the output text area, and click OK. Next, drag Page to the fixed dynamic. Double-click to open it, and click the Value tab. And drag in the var page variable from the browser, and click OK. Lastly, drag Limit to the fixed dynamic. Double-click to open it, and click the Value tab. Drag in the var limit variable from the browser to the output text area. Then click OK to close this function. Finally, click OK to close this step. Save and close the current task. Then, under the Data Connectors area, under System, Tools, Data Connectors, open the Web Service Configurations. Double-click the BigCommerce tutorial configuration. OK, we are now going to add a second request. In the Operations tab, click Add. Name it get_order_products, and ensure operation type is set to get. Now click OK. The Define HTTP operation window will now appear. In the URL tab, click the Use Connection URL tick box. Under Input Parameters, create the following parameters. These are StoreHash and Order ID. At the bottom in the URL text area, drag down StoreHash and type /v2/orders/ and drag down Order ID followed by /products. Click the Output tab and click Output Required. OK, let's switch to the web browser and let's go to this URL. And copy the application JSON response example. Then, back in BPA Platform, paste this schema into the text area, and then click Infer Schema from XML or JSON. Then, let's validate the schema, and if it is valid, click OK. Now click OK. Click OK again, and then click Close. We have previously looked at transforming the data, so this time we will import a predefined transform. Let's go back to our task. Add a transform data step. In Data Source, click Use a Record Set, and in the Input Source dropdown, select Output XML from Get Orders. In the Main tab, click Import, and in the Training Resources, click BigCommerce Transform Structure XSD file, and then click Open. We will now map the data. Go to the Mapping tab and expand the trees. On the left, drag the last root subnode to the order subnode on the right to create a simple loop. Next, drag ID item on the left to order ID on the right. OK, now open the Functions pane, drag in a Run VB Script function, and close the pane. Under the billing address subnode on the left, drag first name to the Run VB Script function. Then on the left, also drag last name to the Run VB Script function. On the right, drag full name to the right side of the Run VB Script function. OK, now double-click this function, and in the VB Script tab, type the following. Click Check Syntax, and if it's OK, click OK and OK again to close the function pane. Next, we need to map the following as shown here. The VB script in the mapping merges the first name and the last name fields from the input data to the full name field in the output data. Now click OK. We will now add a Convert XML to Recordset step. In the Main tab in Data Source, click the drop-down and select Output XML from Transform Data. In the Output Recordset configuration, select All Fields. Now click OK to close. Let's add another Web Service Connector tool. In the General tab, name it Get Order Products. Then click Use a record set or XML source from another step, and in the drop-down choose Results from Convert XML to Record Set that we just created. In the Web Service tab, in the drop-down select our BigCommerce tutorial configuration. In Operations, select Get Order Products. Then in the Mappings tab, expand the trees. And in the Functions tab, drag in two fixed dynamic functions. And close the pane. Drag XAuth token from the right to the fixed dynamic function. Then double-click to open it. Now click the Value tab. In the Browser Environment tab, set Scope to Task. And drag in the var access token variable into the output text area. Then click OK to close this function. OK, now drag store hash to the remaining fixed dynamic function. And double-click to open it. In the Value tab, drag the var store hash variable into the output text area. Click OK to close this function. Now map order ID from the left side to order ID on the right. And also drag order ID to supplementary reference. Map the row node from the left side to the Get Order Products node on the right. This will automatically create a simple loop. Click OK to close this step. Now let's add another transform data for the order products. Let's name it Transform Order Products. In Data Source, select Use a record set or XML source from another step. And in the drop-down, select Output XML from Get Order Products. Click on the Main tab and click the Import button. Select BigCommerce Transform Order Products Structure XSD file from the training resources and click Open. Now click the Mapping tab and expand the trees. Click Import and select BigCommerce Transform Order Products Mappings DTLX and then Open. On the pop-up, click Yes. Note the two loops. We can have multiple orders, and each order can have multiple products. Click OK to close this step. Now we need to convert the XML into a record set, as we are about to push the records into the SQL staging database. So let's add a Convert XML to Record Set step. Append the name Order Products. In the Main tab, select Data Source Task Step, and in the drop-down select Output XML from Transform Order Products. Then select All Fields. Click OK to close. OK, let's add a Call Stored Procedure step. Name this step Write Order Header to Staging. In the General tab, click Use a Record Set, and in the drop-down select Results from Convert XML to Record Set. Click the Main tab, and in Connection Used, select our B2C Staging DB v3.2 connection. In Select a Procedure, click Browse. We will now select a procedure from DBO and find SP Order Header Upsert and click OK. We can now see the available parameters. Firstly, locate Web Order ID, and from the browser, in the Environment tab, with scope set to this step, drag in order_order ID into the value column. Now we will do the same for the following, as shown here. Click OK to close this step. Now we will create another stored procedure step for order details. Name this step Write Order Products to Staging. Click Use a Record Set, and in the drop-down, select Results from Convert XML to Record Set Order Products. Click the Main tab. In Connection Used, ensure B2C Staging DB v3.2 is selected. Then in Select a Procedure, click Browse. Under DBO, locate SP Order Detail Upsert, select it, and click OK. Then complete the following as shown here. Click OK to close this step. OK, now let's join up the steps. We can now save and close the task. Before we run the task, we need to ensure that there are new orders in BigCommerce. Let's add them now. In the backend, we need to ensure the new order status is set to Awaiting Fulfillment. And make a note of the order number. Back in BPA Platform, we can now run the task. Once it has completed, we now need to open the staging database to see the new orders that have been synchronized. Expand Databases, B2C Staging DB v3.2, and select the Orders table. Right-click and select the top 1000 rows. You can now see the order we created earlier with its matching Web Order ID. We can also see the web source is BigCommerce as we mapped these fields earlier. In this video, we have downloaded sales orders from BigCommerce to a staging database. In a full production example, these could then be synchronized with your ERP system. For more information and other tutorials, please visit our website. Thanks for watching.